Hi, Chris here from the Thomann YouTube channel. Welcome back. Look who we have in the studio, Greg Koch.
Hey,
everybody.
How's it going?
Yay!
It's good to be here.
It's awesome. You took some time and you traveled all the way from wherever you were.
Yes,
far away.
we were in Holland yesterday, and we drove a great drive in the rain last night. But here we are,
It's a lot of fun.
ready to rock.
What's up with those little thingies
Okay,
there?
so these pickups. I started working with Fishman about 4 years ago, and it was one of these things where I knew Fishman products as they pertain to acoustic guitars. You know, acoustic pickups, acoustic amplifiers, all like preamps, so on and so forth. Yeah. And I knew it was really high quality stuff, and I had used it here and there when I was doing acoustic stuff. And I got a call from my buddy Richie Fliegler, who was the vice president of marketing for Fender for years, who I worked with a lot back in the Fender days. And now he's got an independent marketing firm, and he called me up. He's like, hey, I'm working with Larry Fishman, and we're working on these new electric guitar pickups. And he started telling me a little bit. He's like, we really want you to come and hear these things. And I'm like, I really don't care. I mean, to be honest with you, and the reason why is because I was already busy enough. I was doing all kinds of different stuff, and as a matter of fact, when he called me, I was on my way to Europe to do some stuff with the band, and I was like, oh my god, another thing. I mean, not to sound like a knob, but there's only so many days in a month, and when you got a wife and kids and stuff,
and you fill it up, and then
oh my god. Yeah. But the more he described it, he's like, listen, I know you know me, I'm telling you, you got to check these pickups out. And I was like, for you, I will. Because I knew if he was getting me involved, it must be worth my time, right? Yeah. So I came out, I got back from Europe, I went out to Boston, where Fishman is located, and they started telling me about these pickups and what they all did, and we started messing around with them. And to make a very long story short, what I realized pretty quick is that years ago, I was working with Fender, and they were going to do a pickup for me, a signature pickup. And that's when Dan Smith was in charge of R&D, and actually Bill Lawrence was doing some work with Fender at that point in time. And they said, well, what do you want in a pickup? And I said, well, I want a pickup that looks like a regular single coil, but really sounds like a regular single coil that doesn't have any noise.
Oh, okay.
Because to me, every time you play a stacked pickup, it's always about compromise, right? It does this weird compression mid-range thing. As soon as you plug it in after playing a regular single coil, you're like, but you're like, well, it doesn't make any noise, and I need that for when I tour, because I go into places where you never know what the grounding situation is going to be. So it's always about compromise. So I said, I don't want to compromise. I want to have the best sounding single coil sound, but noiseless, but I want them to look like regular single coils, because every time there's dual blades and there's this, that, and the next thing. And I said, on top of that, I would like to have some kind of incremental boost in gain. Not something as extreme as like the Clapton preamp, where it's like 24 dB or something. Yeah. I just want a little something to go, just when I'm in the, if I'm doing a lead, I press a little button, boom, And that turns out to be exactly what these pickups did. So I worked with them initially on what they call the single width pickups, but they're Strat pickups, and then they're classic humbuckers. To give you a little, people like, well, is it modeling technology? What is it? What's going on? Just to simplify it, there was a guy who worked in the aerospace industry that was a guitar player, and he came across, they work a lot with these really, really thin circuit boards. And so his idea was you could actually print a coil, or a winding, if you will, on a circuit board and stack the circuit boards, and then you would have a coil that would be the same every time, but in addition, you could actually change the voicing however you wanted with a preamp. So this functions as they call it, the Fluence core, these stacked circuit boards with the winding on it. Those is like a blank canvas. So when you would just hear that by itself, it's low output and it's just kind of blah, because it's just kind of a blank canvas, right? So it needs a preamp. So when they started telling me that, well, you need to have a battery involved, I'm like, battery? I don't want a battery in my guitar. I don't want a battery in a Telecaster. Are you kidding me? And they're like, man, we've got this sussed. I'm like, okay, well, do tell. So they came up with a lithium-ion battery option that you charge it up with a phone charger, and you get 300 hours of playing time
That's
300 hours of plugged-in playing time. That's like
long.
forever. So to me, then I'm like, okay, well, that's not even an issue because you do a few gigs, you change your strings. I'm going to need to change my strings before I'm going to need to charge the guitar. And when I'm changing my strings, I'll just top it off. I've never come close to running out of power. So people are like, well, what happens if you run out of battery power? I'm like, well, what happens to your cell phone?
Yeah. You make sure.
Yeah, you make sure that it's charged up. But the good news is you've got 300 hours of plugged-in time to plug it back in again. I mean, even, anyone that's playing a 300-hour gig needs to seek new representation. You know what I mean? So for me, since I've had these pickups for the period of time that I've had them, there's a little light that starts blinking when you've got 5 hours left, and I've never even come close to that.
Okay.
So for the Tele pickups, what we did is that I wanted something that looked traditional, right? And so you look at this Tele neck pickup. There's nothing on it. It just looks like a regular Tele pickup. You got the bridge pickup. There's a little Fluence line on there, but you got to look close.
A signature Fishman thing.
But for the most part, you look at this and it doesn't look any different. In order to do what we needed to do as far as keeping the pickups quiet, changing the voicings and all that kind of stuff, this control panel had to come with it. So when you see the control panel, it comes with the pickups and it comes with the input jack. And the reason why I mentioned the input jack is because there's a little mini USB input that charges the lithium-ion battery that's in here.
Right.
And again, for an hour-and-a-half charge, you get 300 hours of plugged-in playing time. So that solves that. So with the other Fluence pickups, for instance, like the single-width pickups for Strat and classic humbuckers, you can use, it comes with a 9-volt option with the volume pots, but if you want that lithium-ion battery, it's an extra option.
Right.
But for these Tele pickups, the Gristle-Tone pickups, it just comes with everything.
Right.
And the reason is that when we started messing around, although I contributed to the voicing of the Strat pickups and the classic humbuckers, I had final say-so on these. So I had complete control. And what we realized going in is what we basically did is we sent out a couple of my Teles to Fishman, and they had a machine. There's a lot of MIT brain talent at Fishman because they're right in Boston. So they invented a program that examined the algorithms of pickups, and they were able to look at, and go, okay, let's take this out, let's leave this in. And with this technology, they were able to sculpt the sound in a way that has never been able to be done before. Okay. And because of the way that they're constructed, they're consistent every time. So every set of Gristle-Tone pickups you buy are going to be the same. And that way, but that's not to say that they're going to make every guitar sound the same. The guitar is going to sound the way it's going to sound because of the wood and the lacquer and so on and so forth, and how old it is and all that other kind of good stuff. It's just that the equation of are the pickups different is out of the question. The pickups are going to be the same. You don't have to worry about. I always make the joke of you don't have to worry about a gal, winding. Well, she wound these at 1 o'clock on a Friday afternoon after she had a liquid lunch, and then she had some Greek food, and so there were enzymes on her hand. So my pickups, so she did a couple extra windings. So that's why people argue about this stuff online. They're in their parents' basement, slathered with peanut butter in their Scooby-Doo pajamas, going, "My pickups are the best." Trixie McCorkindale wound mine on a Friday afternoon, which is fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's all fun stuff. And and mythology and all that kind of. I mean, it's all fun, and there is validity to all that different stuff.
Sure. I mean,
but in a perfect world, you'd want to be able to say, "I want to buy these pickups and know that they're."
I like how they sound.
They sound.
So I want to get as close as possible.
Exactly.
To that
exactly.
basic sound. Yeah.
So that whole thing is out of the picture. Sorry, folks, you can't be arguing about. Well, I bought an earlier set of Gristle-Tones. And apparently,
the hand-wound ones.
Exactly. So we sent out a couple of my Teles, which were analyzed. The pickups were analyzed, and they were various different, custom wind things and so on and so forth. And then Richie Fliegler sent out one of his Telecasters, and they examined those. So for the actual process of voicing them, we had a Tele we called a shuttle guitar. So we were able to actually, with 2 1/4-inch jacks on either side of the pickups, pop those out, pop the actual wound pickups in, and hear them on the actual guitar. Because if you have another guitar, it's not real science because there's different, as there's different aspects to how that guitar is going to sound. So when you're able to actually A/B them pretty instantaneously, it was hugely informative. So they had made some mock-up versions based on my other guitars of Fluence versions of the pickups that they wanted me to check out. And when I plugged them in right away, I'm like, it's doing that weird compressy thing that stack pickups do. We can't have it. So we started from scratch, basically. We just wanted to make the pickup sound the best it could be before we even messed with how to make it quiet, right?
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
So we worked and worked and worked, and in the space of a day, it was just a long day. And finally, I'm like, we got to the point of going back and forth after we, and so we'd put the other pickups in, and I was able to say, Frank Falbo was there, and he was at the computer with this program that they had, and I'd be like, no, I need a little bit more of this. And then he would be able to shape the preamp sound to make it sound, I pop the other pickups in, go, eh. So by the time we were done A-Bing back and forth, I actually preferred
the one you created.
The one we created, right? So I'm like, okay, now that we got that sound down, let's figure out how to make it quiet. So to make a very long story short, everything that's in this control panel is what's making it quiet. Wow. It's a different design than the other ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Actually,
so there's something in here in the secret compartment. It's not really all that unusual, but it's
clever.
It's clever. So then we worked on the second voice. So key things I wanted to be able to turn down the volume and not lose any highs. And that's what these pickups do. I wanted them to sound like a regular Tele pickup. They definitely do. And I wanted that incremental gain. So this little push button allows me to get a second voice, which is a little meatier, a couple dB more maybe.
Oh, okay.
Basically what we say is one's a white guard Tele sound and the more beefy one is a black guard Tele sound.
More mid-range and a little more pushy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to make sure like stuff like those tone control wahs and stuff could be done. That's one of the reasons why we went with the push button, because I didn't want any kind of a push-pull on the tone control, because I didn't want to compromise how that was used. And Larry Fishman said, I got this push button that works. I'm like, perfect, because this, you can barely see it one, and it's totally handy.
Oh,
yeah. It goes from flush to indented, right? So let's just hear the neck pickup. This is with the OTS on. If I turn the volume down, so the tone control wahs things, that stuff works. Let me just actually go cleaner yet. So let's just go turn the OTS off. Here's the bridge pickup. So neck. The middle position is a little squawkier than a regular Tele, because one of the Teles that we were messing with sounded different in the middle position. Like it's got a little bit more of a scoop.
Yeah.
And Larry Fishman got this look on his face. He's like, let me check something out. And he brought out this meter and he went up and he goes, well, that guitar, the polarity is reversed from the other Teles. I was like, I don't even know what that means, but I want it.
And I know the word.
Yes.
I've heard
and
that.
So that's another thing that happens beyond the secret perimeter here, is that it does that. More kind of a Gretchy, you know what I mean? Roundness to it. So here's neck. Middle. Bridge. Okay. Now if I press the button in, now I'm getting a little bit more meat. So it's just a nice little
It's not
incremental
only
bump.
louder, it's really like...
Yeah, it's got some beef. I usually 99% of the time don't have the button pressed in.
Okay.
But if I'm doing bridge pickup stuff, I'll pop, especially with gain on, and then it goes, but it sings like a beast, and you don't lose any highs when you turn the volume down.
Wow.
And there's no noise. I mean, they're completely quiet. So
That's impressive. Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people are like, well, you know, again, is it modeling? No. Are they active? Yes. But it's a analog preamp in there affecting this new coil.
Yeah.
You have multiple sounds. So the new technology allows you to have a better sounding, arguably the best sounding noiseless pickup that's ever been made. You get multiple voices, and the consistency is not debatable. They'll be the same every time.
Cannot argue.
And so with they're a little bit, maybe in the States, I think the price is reasonable considering you get everything that you see here. I mean, it's $350 American, back home. So I don't know what it is over here, but I'm sure you can assist with the people with that. But
you can check it out on Thomann.
Yes, and so I love them. I mean, and I just recently bought a '53 Telecaster. I always wanted an old guitar. I ended up getting it, and people are always going, well, you're going to put your pickups in that guitar? And I'm like, you're missing the point. The point is, if you have an old guitar that has those pickups, I mean, those pickups are just on the old Telly. They're almost too microphonic, but that's what makes those guitars do their thing.
Yeah.
And the neck pickup is wimpy, arguably maybe a little bit too wimpy for the bridge pickup, but it has its thing, and you play to that guitar for what it is.
You touch it differently.
Yeah,
and you respect
and you approach it as a different paintbrush, you know what I mean? But, it's old school paintbrush and watercolors, whereas this is Illustrator and, Photoshop and everything else you would want, plus the ability to affect the old school way. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So it's more of a usable tool. For everything. So, for instance, I'm coming over here to tour. I'm bringing this guitar.
Sure.
I'm not going to. Well, not to mention the fact that Telecaster's worth a freaking fortune. I had to harvest a kidney to get it. I don't recommend that, but it turns out I had 3 kidneys, so I was able to. Kind of get rid of one and get a '53 Telecaster. So that worked out well for us. But so that's what I would say. I mean, if you have the workhorse guitar, you pop these pickups in, and what's great about them is that if they work well with pedals, they work well with fuzz. Typically speaking, active pickups shouldn't work well with fuzz. It sounds great with the fuzz. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to question it, but it sounds great with the fuzz. And it sounds great if you just go into any kind of reissue amp. They are a little hotter than regular Tele pickups. So a lot of times I'll go in and just plug straight into a reissue amplifier and like put it on 7.
Yeah.
Turn down the volume. It's clean. It's glass. It's great. Turn it up, and it's like Roy Buchanan rose from the dead and is pissed. You know what I mean?
It's pissed.
So I'm very pleased with them. I haven't really found a downside to them yet. And I've recorded a ton with them in the studio. And when you hear people like, "Oh my God, that Tele sounds great," I'm like, "Well, that's my pickups," And they're like, "Woo!"
A part are the pickups.
So I think it's people are really coming around. It took a little while because guitar players they're always like, "Well, I mean, just how I was when they first told me about it." I'm like, "Really? What do I care about pickup?" And then when your mind gets around it, you're like, holy cats, this is something I would totally use. And so there it is.
I mean, there are so many modern, things companies come up with and try to, do something totally new and nobody needs it.
Right.
It's like,
exactly.
Why?
Right.
It was just fine.
Right.
With noise, I totally get it. I mean, I couldn't be bothered, but, there are so many people that spend way more time on stage.
Right.
Like, more time on stage than off stage in their lives. I mean, just people like you, it can really bug you.
Oh, absolutely.
It can really get on your nerves. And
there are people who say, well, noise is part of the sound. Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
But other times, like, no, you don't want any noise.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have options.
Exactly. Great. Are you cool with a little comparison? Like
absolutely.
You
Let's
just
do it.
play something and then do the same thing on this guitar.
Let's do it. So we got neck, middle, bridge. Okay.
Alrighty.
Here.
Just swap guitars.
So this is a custom shop 53 with probably
no-caster.
With no-caster
pickups. Next. Interesting.
Yeah.
Way less less output.
Way less output.
But these are like super low wound pickups. This guitar is more quiet than anything else what I've ever heard ever.
Right.
So that's not a big surprise. The bridge pickup has this 50 style.
Yeah.
Like if you had your button
Right. So
pushed in.
Button for them. It's just more. I mean, those sound great.
Yeah, it's like more of the subtle kind of tele sound. But
Exactly.
this is like super fast, super open, you know.
Yeah, the attack is fast, and that's one of the things where that's how I like. We were talking about that earlier. That's what I like. I like maple boards. I like ash bodies. I like a faster attack. And these pickups definitely do that. And sometimes people are like, "Why does it sound?" You know what I mean? Because they want more latency. You know what I mean? But there you have it. It is what it is.
No curtains here.
Yeah,
you know, You're on stage. If you make a mistake,
you're doing it. You're gonna hear it.
Everybody's gonna hear it.
Yeah.
So. Great, awesome. Thank you very much for showing both of these. Awesome
well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. You are welcome. And please let us know where can we see you again?
Well, you know what? I'm going to be over. We are my organ trio, which is the Koch Marshall Trio with my son on drums and Toby Lee Marshall on Hammond B3. Just signed a nice deal with the Mascot Label Group, and there's a new label they're doing called Players Club, which is an instrumental-oriented label, and we have a record coming out in February of 2018. And we'll be touring a lot behind that, so please check us out.
Oh, please do that. It's awesome. You can already find a couple of videos.
Yeah, a couple of videos are online.
Which I was like, whoa, that's...
Yeah, and that's videos of the songs that'll be on this first release that is coming.
Oh, great, great. Which is very interesting because there's no bass player. Because
exactly.
Of the Hammond.
Yeah, so he plays pedals and left-hand bass.
Yeah.
And he's got this mechanism that he segregates the low-end signal, goes into a bass amp. And it sounds massive. And he's a great bass player. I mean, his bass lines he grooves like a demon, and then he comps great, and his soloing is insane. So it's perfect.
Dude, I gotta check you out live.
Yeah,
it's probably very impressive. Oh, great, awesome. So have an awesome time here in Europe.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, welcome.
And
you guys can check out everything from Greg coming up, all the NAMM show coverages, probably you'll be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
My website is gregkoch.com, and I'm on Facebook, Greg Koch Music, Koch Marshall Trio Music, so on and so forth. You'll find me.
Do that, and you can subscribe to our channel, of course, so that you're not missing anything coming up. Every Thursday, new video. Otherwise...
Actually, and you can go to Koch, is it KochAmps.com?
Yeah.
KochAmps.com.
Written together.
And we have kind of a mailing list that we're starting, collecting names for people that are interested in the amp and so on and so forth. So you get a newsletter saying, it's here, come.
Alrighty guys, take it easy. Cheers. Comment in the comment section, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.